The Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has suspended proceedings after the House descended into chaos. EFF MPs were thrown out of the chamber for disrupting proceedings once again. Here is what transpired.
I'm working, I'm a member of Parliament. No, I'm a member here. Go ahead. Let me say, don't get it. Don't worry, I'm not elected by you here. No, I'm not going anywhere. From this seat. Yeah.
Now we start with our latest breaking news. Our reporter Athi Mtongana is in Parliament and she'll be joining us in a moment. But just to remind you that the President was expected to respond to the presidency budget vote during the course of this morning until all chaos, if you will, transpired this morning. A number of objections soon after the President had started speaking. And Athi Mtongana is on the line now to bring us up to speed with what's transpired this morning. Athi, good to speak to you again. Just give us a summary of what you've witnessed this morning.
Before I give you a summary, I just want to bring in the Minister who's been waiting for us, Minister Lindiwe Zulu. She's also an ANC MP. What do you make of the events that have just transpired in the House?
Well, it's very unfortunate, but it is expected. I think we came in here knowing perfectly well that what we saw yesterday was also going to continue today. It is very unfortunate, but it's the reality of the situation. The fact of the matter is that from the African National Congress point of view, democracy is not an easy thing to do, but it is needed and it is important. So, as the African National Congress, we are convinced that the Speaker and the presiding officers must use the rules. The reason why we have the rules, it is because there was an anticipation of how Parliament must be run and what needs to be done. And the good thing is that if we look at it from 1994, how the rules were framed and how the rules have been framed now, it's an experience of the different sessions that have been happening in the House and the bigger political space which has been opened by our own democracy. We have much more parties in Parliament right now, and therefore it's much more robust, and the robustness is what we need to have in check, because there's a difference between robust and destruction.
Now, it is not common that just before the President replies to the debate, particularly the presidency budget vote, wherein the House gets suspended as a result of some of the issues that transpired. What is the way forward now?
The way forward is that the Speaker adjourned the House and requested the chief whips of the different political parties to go and have a conversation, hopefully a conversation that will lead us to the next step of what needs to be done. And again, I think our democracy is good in the sense that we have rules. There's the anarchy or chaos that can be there will only be resolved by going back into the rules, going into the constitution of the country, and this is the base from which we all have to work, firstly as Parliament, but also as the different political parties.
Minister, even before the delivery of the presidency budget vote yesterday, there were already statements about the disruptions that would take place. So, of course, you did mention that this was anticipated. And given what happened yesterday then, what were the preparations from Parliament side, particularly the Speaker's side, to avoid what has happened? Because now the President has not been able to reply. So were there any proper, preparations ahead of this?
Yes, there were proper preparations ahead of this. Remember that the members of Parliament across the political spectrum, they have the right to come to the House. They have the right to stand up and raise points of order. They have the right to express themselves in the manner in which they want to express themselves. However, everything has to be done within the rules. And this is what was happening now. The rules were no longer being respected as they are supposed to be respected by one side of some members of Parliament. And that is why, again, the Speaker had to use the rules to get them to be out of the House. What is very unfortunate, obviously, is just that the violence that comes with it. I don't think that this is something that should be encouraged by anybody, not by any political party. You saw the bottles being thrown around, and as a matter of fact, there is one of the women officers who was hurt. I saw her now going to the bathroom to come and fix, and I think she's being taken to the doctor. South Africa doesn't need this. Mm-hmm. If it was happening in the past, and because we're also in a learning curve of how to build our institutions, I personally believe that this is not the time for that anymore. We need to have the decorum of the House, and the only way we can have the decorum of the House is for us to actually start tempering our own tempers, number one. No. And number two, we also have to appreciate the fact that the whole of South Africa is watching, and probably the whole world is watching, and we believe in our responsibility as political parties, and particularly our leaders in the political parties. We need to look into ourselves and say, what else can be done to make the situation better than what it looks right now?
The sentiment that we got yesterday and today from some of the other MPs, including the MPs from the EFF and other political parties, the sentiment around them is that there is no political will from the president of the ANC to answer the questions around the robbery at his farm, and hence what has transpired inside the chamber yesterday and today. And they note that law enforcement authorities are probing this matter, but they feel there's still no political will and accountability from the president's side to answer the questions that have been raised, and particularly to take the country into his confidence.
I think the president has responded, statements have been issued, and here, we came here to deal with the budget. We came here to deal with what is going to happen to the monies that have been allocated to the presidency in as far as delivery to our people are concerned. And this is why there is a sitting. Every sitting is guided and is covered again by the rules. The president's responsibility right now is for him to, what he did yesterday, present the budget and talk about where his whole office is taking the country to.
But it seems that the EFF was not bothered about that, because they want him to answer to the questions around the robbery at his farm, and this is why we've seen what is happening here. We've posed this question to the EFF about whether are they not concerned about what the president would say in as far as the presidency's budget vote is concerned, but many of the MPs feel that the president is not taking the country into his confidence by answering questions about the robbery.
The issue is, where are those questions supposed to be answered? I think everybody knows where those questions are supposed to be answered. We've got a job here to do. We've got to make sure that the delivery that we promise that we're going to give to our people of South Africa, we do it. And that is what we are doing. The president will get his time, will get the moment where he has to deal directly with that. But also let us not run away from the fact that politicking is the order of the day in South Africa. And therefore, the politicking as being the order of the day in South Africa, where do we put ourselves as members of the African National Congress? As members of the African National Congress, we were given a mandate to come to Parliament through our president to present budgets, just like we've all presented our budgets as ministers. And therefore, this sitting is not meant for anything else other than the budget that the president has to present. And by the way, who says he was not going to be able to answer some of the questions that they raised yesterday? Now, they never gave him the opportunity to do so. They distracted him before he could even say one word. So, when you talk about the president not being able to respond, what are you talking about, or what are people talking about when he wasn't even given a chance to even respond to that? We rest our case on the basis that the fact that he was here to respond and he wasn't given the chance to respond. So the politics is playing itself, and we are not getting into that mud as the African National Congress.
Right, thank you so much for your time. The Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, saying they won't get thrown into the mud of playing politics inside the chamber. This is, of course, as they expected President Cyril Ramaphosa to reply to the presidency budget vote debate this morning. But, of course, he wasn't able to proceed. But we believe that chief whips now have been called into a meeting from all political parties to discuss a way forward following the suspension of the order in the chamber this morning. And so we believe that there is a possibility that they will go back inside and continue and have the president eventually take to the podium and speak. And we know that even later on he has scheduled a session with the media where he'll be answering some questions, probably, of course, around the topic of his farm, the robbery at his farm. But for now, though, the MPs have been asked to leave the chamber and the chief whips have been called into a meeting to discuss a way forward.
Athi Mtongana, thank you for your time.